You see the perfect job, you're well qualified for it, it's with your ideal company, you put all of your materials together, you apply online, and then you get a rejection. Or worse, you hear crickets. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us, and pop in the chat where you're joining us from so we can kind of see who's out there. And I'm really excited for this conversation today because these are things we hear a lot. It's been coming up a lot lately, especially as the job market has been kind of tough. It's just been a weird market. And I think especially as we head to the election and things like that, things seem to be slowing down. And so we wanted to address some of the things that we're hearing and give you some actionable ways to overcome some of these things. So an example of this would be you see the perfect job posted online, right? You see the perfect job, you're well qualified for it, it's with your ideal company, you put all of your materials together, you apply online, and then you get a rejection. Or worse, you hear crickets and you hear nothing. And you think, what happened? Why was I not called in for this role? It's perfect. I should have at least had the opportunity to interview. And we hear this all the time. So now we're going to go ahead and get started with some of the top 5 reasons we see not getting moved forward in the job search to interview for a role. And let's get started with one that we've been seeing a ton lately is applying for things you're overqualified for. You have to have the opportunity to explain why and explain your enthusiasm for the role in the company and this next move in your career. Otherwise, you're probably not going to get plucked from the top of the stack to have that opportunity to have that conversation in an interview. So many of our clients have built amazing careers through their network, getting promoted, getting recruited. They're kind of pulled along up to this point in their career where they've never had to take themselves to market before, and especially at this level. And then they have an opportunity through whatever happens in life where they need to make a change. And a lot of times that comes with wanting to make a change in industry, type of role, function, because they've never had that opportunity to think and reflect about what they really want to do. And that's great, and career changes are absolutely possible. I've done it a couple times, so I know many of us have. The problem is, if you're going to make a pivot, then applying online and reaching out to recruiters, but that's a separate conversation, is going to do you a disservice, because what's happening is, even if you have transferable skills, if you're applying to these roles that are not really apples to apples to what you've done, you're applying against a ton of people who do have apples to apples experience. And so you're not going to make it to the top of the pile because there's a ton of other candidates that have, say, exact experience with a competitor of that company, or have very traditional ladder experience at a similar firm. And so you making a pivot to something else is just not going to rise to the top for that conversation. And really what you want when you think about your job search is you want the opportunity to have the conversation and make the point that you are qualified. But you're not going to be able to do that without getting an interview, and you're not going to be able to get an interview if you're applying online. You really want to leverage your network and not just apply online, but think about, if you're making a career transition, it's more helpful to think about what companies you want to work for and really focus on the types of companies, types of industries, and then network in strategically that way to have conversations with real people. Because what we'll want to see happen is a leader see you and your expertise and say, wow, you have amazing background, where can we fit you, versus do you have all of the perfect experience that we already have laid out for this specific job. So it's coming in an opposite direction in your job search, but that's what's going to be more effective if you're trying to make a big pivot. Or they change the scope of the job after it was posted. So let's talk about, this is something that happens to career changers and kind of everyone, especially if they fit into that mold of not having to have taken yourself to market in a long time. You don't know what to say about yourself. You don't know how to position yourself. I tell people all the time, our clients don't need us necessarily to get a job. It's positioning you for those top opportunities, right? You're already wildly qualified, but how are you standing out against the top candidates in your field? And what's not going to be it is starting a resume with 20 years of experience leading XYZ. That's table stakes. That's what everyone has to have to even come to the table. So how are you standing out, and how are you positioned to be the person who's going to solve the biggest challenges that a company is facing today, or whatever's happening in their industry? And that's where you want to come at it from. And so this is really helpful. And I think, one of the other things that comes up a lot that we don't talk about is when you apply online, say you're positioned well, you've worked with a resume writer, or you've done the work to really stand out in the market, LinkedIn profile's great, it's a perfect job, you're a perfect fit, it's apples to apples, you apply and you're still not hearing. And what I like to remind people all the time is there are countless reasons you may not hear back, or you may not get an interview, or you may get a rejection that have nothing to do with you. But the hard part is when you get rejection after rejection, it's damaging to your ego, but a healthy ego and a healthy sense of confidence and self-worth is absolutely vital to an effective job search. You know, you can't advocate for yourself, interview strongly, be a leader, negotiate your compensation without some confidence and self-worth. But if you're getting constant rejections, that's not helpful. And that's a hit every single time, right? And so what I like to remind people is there are things that you have no control over. So things like, and we've been seeing this a ton lately, of the job getting posted, but then leadership changing and the job coming down. You're not going to hear why it came down. You're just going to hear that you didn't get the interview. Or they changed the scope of the job after it was posted, and everyone that was in the running is now no longer qualified. That happened really recently. It could be that this happened to a gentleman I was talking to recently. He was perfectly qualified. He applied for this role, but the person that got the job had the exact same job at this company's largest competitor. There's nothing this man could have done differently. There's no more experience, qualification, positioning that he could have brought to the table that would get him over that hump. And then even if you get into the interview process, you know, and this goes a long way with talking about needing that internal referral. We had a client who got to the interview process, got to the final stage, was the entire hiring committee's number one choice for a C-level role. Everyone had made him number one choice, but the hiring manager decided to hire someone that was an internal referral that he knew personally. Again, there is nothing you can do differently. So you want to think about, you know, first of all, not taking it personally when you don't hear, knowing that it may take months to hear. That same person just got called back for an interview for a job that he applied for in February. That's crazy, but it does happen. Sometimes, you know, these things take time, so you may not hear right away. And just remember, you know, especially at the C level, and we talk about this all the time, executive level, you know, VP, things like this, your jobs aren't typically online, but we need to think about our go-to-market strategy and where you're finding these opportunities and how you're going to market so that you don't spin your wheels in the online application hamster wheel and then have all of these things that are out of your control come up and pop in the way. And you don't want to get to the point where you put all your eggs in a basket that you thought was a slam dunk and then get to the end of a lengthy process and either not get the offer, or we see a lot of times you don't want the offer. You don't know what that final offer looks like until it comes across your desk. And we had a candidate recently get an offer that was not a favorable offer, and it actually raised a lot of red flags for the company. So you don't know what that's going to look like, and you don't want to then start your search completely over from scratch when you get to that point. So that's something that, you know, I know is a little bit off topic, but something that we could put on a billboard if we could. Keep the process moving, keep going. It's not going to hurt to have these conversations. You know, we have a candidate right now. He was who's actively looking, is really, you know, trying to land something. He's been in a long search, and there's a couple of opportunities that aren't ideal for him. He's probably not going to take them, and that's fine. But at least have the first 1 or 2 rounds of conversations to explore that, right? Don't count yourself out or decide it's not a fit until you at least have a conversation to learn more. So that's something that we talk about a lot as well. Yeah, the pool is huge. You know, I posted on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, there was a story on NPR's Marketplace about how there's now AI tools that will apply to jobs. And what that's doing, though, is increasing exponentially the number of applicants for these jobs, right? And so that's not helpful either. And so we really need to think about how you're taking yourself to market and what channels make sense. And we can talk recruiters, which we'll be doing in a future LinkedIn Live. It's, you know, certainly networking. It's focusing on companies and not opportunities. There's a lot of things. Bottom line is the job search is hard. And it is going to take a lot of time. And you just need to think about where you're going to spend that time. And somebody recently referred to the job search, and I completely agree, as a soul shriveling experience. And I get it. It's not fun. There's no perfect formula. It's a case of luck and preparation and effort, and all of these things have to come in together. So keep your morale up, right? Don't get discouraged. And if you're facing 600 online applications and no interviews, then maybe it's time to rethink your process, right? Absolutely. And that's, again, shameless plug, something we can help with. You know, with our clients, we certainly do the foundational pieces of resumes, LinkedIn profiles, that positioning piece, the unique value, but also the go-to-market strategy, your job search strategy, interview preparation, all of those things kind of end to end. At whatever point your job search is breaking down, we can come in and really help you work through the process that is typically a really lonely process. Does DNS play an active role in the client's job search life cycle from start to finish? Absolutely. We can be as hands-on or as hands-off as a client needs. So sometimes we have clients who want more of like a job search accountability partner to go through the process, have questions, be able to bounce things off, have emails. You know, we've been as involved as people sending us pictures of what they're going to wear to interviews, to weigh in on what outfit. And you know what's funny? It's only ever been men. No woman has done that, but men do. And we do have different levels of coaching. So we are an executive career management firm, but we do have services and options for people that are either rising executives or professionals that need a different level of support. Okay. And we can do one-off coaching as well, which we offer. I know that was a question Maverick had. So as I kind of wrap up, please tell me in the chat what tip was meant for you today. What tip are you able to take away and make a change in the way you've been conducting your job search? I'd love to see what resonated with each of you.